Hey Kendall, how you doing? I was reading through your writing here, and we're gonna address all of this. Yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into the composition. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I want to be as thorough as possible here. Okay, so you're probably wondering why I've got the front and the back open at the same time. And the reason, Kendall, is because I'm not getting a real strong sense of harmony when comparing the front of the poster to the back of the poster. In fact, it almost looks like it could possibly be uh, a different work. I don't think there's enough visual consistency in the front and the back, and I think mainly that's due to the color palette. You've got this gradient here, but here you've got just the blue and the red. I think that's your color palette. You've got it set up here. Stick with it. Bring it to the back and stick with it. You've also changed the color of the timeline with that illustration there. So I think I would go back and really try to get some visual consistency between the front and the back of the poster. Good job changing the B. I think this works out pretty well. You definitely can read his name. I think that this is an interesting uh, illustration, kind of worked in typographically, and I think that definitely will work in terms of continuation to the front of the back of the poster. But again, I would recommend maintaining the color palette established on the first page. I'm sorry, accomplished organic chemist. I would capitalize O and C in organic and chemist. This relationship right here, I'm still on the fence about this. I just don't think it's working out as effectively as it could be. And I think one of the reasons for that is the fact that it's not set at full opacity. I would recommend setting that at full opacity, and I think that will establish some elements that you can use and continue onto the back of the poster. Right now, I think I'm still kind of thinking this is a little bit complex here. You've got these little things hanging off here and here, here and here. I'm wondering if we don't just configure that as kind of those honeycombs, and then continue that, and then break them off like this, but use this whole thing as the timeline as opposed to this. And let me tell you why. And to do so, I'm going to increase the size here, and I want to show you them. Right now, this looks like stair steps. It's almost a perspective drawing of stair steps. See what I'm saying? So I think that that presentation kind of it just kind of impedes the successful continuation of the front, in that we've got this now. This almost looks like straight up stairs. You see what I'm saying? And the more you look at it, the more the perspective kind of messes with you. So these are the surface of the stairs here. This is the facing. This is the surface. But if you look at it for a second, this could be the surface and this could be facing if the stairs were angled. So there's a little bit of ambiguity in there, and I think that that manifests itself in the way that the timeline is viewed. Um, Another option here would be to set this vertically and establish your timeline more towards the bottom of the composition. I think that might even be more beneficial, because right now this is kind of dissecting the page. We got timeline here, bio here, and there's really no interplay between the two, as you've got this line that's kind of separating the page. So I'm wondering if you weren't to take this illustration, flip it vertically, place it at the bottom here, and then assemble your timeline off that. That way, it'll open up a lot of this area. You can instead of clotheslining your type, and I'll talk about that in a second, you can actually probably get yourself to three maybe even four equal type columns. I would probably increase the margin than the gutters and use four columns of this type. So they're going to be short. Clotheslining is this. It's where the top line is in alignment, but the bottom lines aren't. The alternative to that is called skyscraping, and that's where the bottom baselines are even, but then the tops are uneven. So I'm okay with this configuration. I'm okay with your typography. I think your typography is done pretty well. But as far as the layout itself goes, I'd like to see a little bit more activation of the entire page as a design element, as opposed to this. This right here just cuts this page in two, And it doesn't do it in an organic way. It does it in a kind of a geometric way. Okay, so I think that's impeding the successful digestion of the timeline in relationship to the bio. I would reconfigure that, think about that. Okay, let's jump in and take a look at your typography. I would go with old style characters there. And also, you've got old style set in your body copy. That's fantastic. Good job using old style characters. Kendall, that's going to make a difference. Now, look, when we look at our typography, we can see that using old style characters, it really doesn't affect any kind of spatial relationships involving the X height and its relationship to the cap height of the letters. And that's the wonderful thing about old style characters is that X height right there is preserved. So you don't get any unusual spacing configuration with old style figures that you always get when setting standard figures. And the reason that I say that is relevant is because when there's a professional, a hiring professional looking at your work here, that hiring professional is going to see these old style figures, and it's going to respect that. Say, hey, and I know when I see old style figures from a design student, I say to myself inside my head, I say, okay, I'm going to look closer because this student has been paying attention. So it's really, really a good practice. Okay, so what I'm seeing here is your rags are okay, but they're not great. This is a good set of rags here. Second paragraph. That's fantastic. The first paragraph, you got this little wavy pattern right here. Right here. See how, sorry about that. That kind of swoops in right there. These are good rags. This pattern right here, see this wave right here? Definitely want to eliminate that. Got good rags from here down. These are pretty good rags with the exception of, I would drop that of to the next line. And then I would drop that the to the next line too. These are good, yeah. Their rags aren't terrible at all. They're not bad at all, but they could use some adjusting. Okay. Oh, your M dashes. These should technically be N dashes. N as in Nancy. And I can see some inconsistency in some of your presentation here. For example, right here, 1944, there's no space after the 4 and the N dash. But in other areas there are. Now, technically, different designers will tell you different things. Some designers feel that there should not be a space between a dash and the letter, the word before it and the letter after it, the words after it. But I think it's an individual situation. What I would recommend doing is setting these up with no space before or after the N dash, and then just get in there with your cursor, place your cursor in there, and just kern a little bit of space in there. Make it consistent, because right now it's not. We can see here 1937, look at that big space after the 7, and then here 1944, no space at all. So just make sure those are consistent. Other than that, I think you're looking really good. Good start, interesting. Just take my comments, consider them, work with them, experiment with them, and let's get this thing working. All right, good start. Thanks so much for sharing. Let me know if you have any questions at all.